My name is Rachel Donovan. I am 32 years old, a licensed CPA with my own small accounting firm, and I was the person my family called whenever anything went wrong: taxes, mortgage paperwork, insurance claims, wiring money to bail my brother out of a bad investment. I was always the one who showed up. I never questioned it. I thought that was what family meant. I was wrong. The day I finally understood what my family actually thought of me was a Tuesday in October, 3 weeks before my brother's wedding. I was sitting at my desk reviewing a client's quarterly report when my phone buzzed. It was a notification from a shared cloud storage account, one my mother had set up years ago for family photos and documents. She had forgotten I still had access. Or maybe she assumed I never checked it. Either way, what I found in that folder changed everything I thought I knew about the people I loved most. But I am getting ahead of myself. To understand what happened, you need to understand who I was before that Tuesday. I grew up in a mid-sized town in Ohio, the middle child of 3. My older brother, who I will call my brother, was the golden one. Charming, funny, never quite responsible but always forgiven. My younger sister was the baby, and she had been protected from every difficult thing since the day she was born. I was the quiet one, the reliable one, the one who studied hard, got scholarships, moved to Chicago after college, and built something from nothing without asking anyone for help. My mother had a way of framing my independence as a personality flaw. She would say things like, "Rachel thinks she's too good for us now," at family dinners while smiling like it was a joke. My father laughed along. My brother would change the subject. My sister would look at her plate. I learned not to flinch. The truth was, I had worked extremely hard for everything I had. My firm handled accounts for small businesses and individual clients across Chicago. I had 4 employees, a downtown office lease I was proud of, and a savings account I had built carefully over 8 years. I was not wealthy by any dramatic measure, but I was stable, and I had done it alone. That stability, I would later learn, was exactly what my family had been quietly discussing for more than a year. When I found the folder that Tuesday, it contained a series of documents I was not meant to see. Meeting notes, printed email threads, a draft letter addressed to a financial institution, and at the center of it all, a typed memo that my mother had apparently written and distributed to my brother and sister, outlining, in careful detail, a plan to have me declared financially incompetent so that a family-appointed trustee, my brother, could take control of my accounts. I sat at my desk and read it 3 times. The memo cited as evidence of my alleged incompetence the fact that I worked long hours, that I had gone through a breakup 2 years earlier and had been emotionally volatile afterward, and that I had once told my mother I was overwhelmed during tax season. That was the evidence. Stress. A breakup. An honest conversation with my mother that she had apparently documented and saved. There was also a name in those documents. A doctor. Someone my mother referred to as a colleague of Sandra's. Sandra being a woman from her church. This doctor had apparently agreed to provide a preliminary evaluation letter without ever meeting me, based solely on what my mother had told him. I closed the folder. I sat very still for a long time. Then, I called my attorney. Her name is not important, but she had handled business matters for my firm for 3 years and I trusted her completely. I explained what I had found. She asked me to forward the documents immediately, which I did. She called me back 40 minutes later and confirmed that what I was looking at was a genuine attempt to initiate a competency proceeding, and that the involvement of a physician who had never examined me was not only unethical but potentially actionable. She told me I had options. I could confront the situation legally right away, or I could wait, gather more information, and choose my moment carefully. I chose to wait. My brother's wedding was in 3 weeks. The entire family would be together. My mother, my father, my brother and his fiancée, my sister, all of them in one room. I'd spent my entire life being the quiet one, the one who absorbed things and moved on without making a scene. I had decided that this time I would not absorb it quietly, but I would also not be careless. If I was going to say what needed to be said, I was going to say it when it counted, when every person who had participated in or known about this plan was looking me in the eye. Those 3 weeks were some of the most surreal of my life. My mother called me twice to chat as though nothing had happened. She asked about my flight into Ohio for the wedding, whether I needed a ride from the airport, whether I was bringing anyone. I answered her questions in a normal voice. I said yes to the ride. I confirmed I was coming alone. I told her I was looking forward to seeing everyone. I was not lying exactly. I was looking forward to seeing everyone. Just not for the reason she assumed. My brother texted me a photo of the venue. My sister sent me a link to the registry. I responded warmly to both of them. Meanwhile, my attorney had sent formal letters to the physician whose name appeared in my mother's documents. His response, relayed through his own counsel, was essentially a quiet admission that he had acted improperly. My attorney told me this was useful. I filed it away. The night before I flew to Ohio, I sat in my apartment and thought about who these people were to me. I thought about my mother driving me to my college entrance exams and squeezing my hand in the parking lot. I thought about my brother teaching me to ride a bike in our driveway when I was 6. I thought about my sister calling me from her college dorm at 2 in the morning when she was scared and homesick. I held all of those memories at the same time as the memo I had read 3 weeks earlier. Both things were true. Both things were real. I did not try to resolve them that night. I just let them sit. The flight to Ohio was smooth. My mother picked me up from the airport with a smile so warm and familiar it made something in my chest tighten. She had brought coffee from the place I liked, the one near our old house. She asked about my flight. She told me my sister had already arrived and was helping with the flower arrangements. She said my brother was nervous but excited. She reached over at a red light and patted my hand. I said, "It's going to be a memorable weekend," and I meant it completely. The rehearsal dinner was the night before the wedding at a restaurant downtown. Round tables with white cloths, candles, the warm sound of silverware and laughter. My brother looked genuinely happy in a way I had not seen in years. His fiancée, my future sister-in-law, was kind and funny and clearly adored him. I found myself wishing, for a moment, that the circumstances were different. That I was just a sister at a rehearsal dinner, nothing more. My mother sat across from me for most of the meal. She was in full warmth mode, asking questions, laughing at stories, refilling people's water glasses without being asked. My father sat beside her, quieter, the way he had always been. He smiled when she smiled, laughed when she laughed. That was his pattern. I watched him more carefully than usual that night and wondered how much he knew, how much she had agreed to, or whether he was simply someone who had never learned to say no to her. My sister sat beside me for a while and told me about a promotion she had recently received. She seemed genuinely pleased to see me. She tucked her arm through mine at one point and leaned her head briefly against my shoulder the way she used to do when she was small. I did not pull away. Whatever came next, I intended to be clear-eyed about what each person had and had not done. The document showed my mother as the architect, my brother as the designated trustee. My sister's name was not on the memo, though she had been copied on one of the emails. I did not yet know how much she understood of what she had been copied on. I had decided I would let that question answer itself the next day. The wedding was beautiful, genuinely. The ceremony was held at a small historic church in the afternoon, and my brother cried when his wife walked down the aisle. And I felt that too. The particular ache of watching someone you love step into a moment of pure joy that exists entirely outside the damage that surrounds it. The reception followed at a hall nearby. Dinner, dancing, toasts. My brother toasted his new wife. His best man made everyone laugh. My mother gave a speech about family being the foundation of everything, which I found impressive in its timing. I clapped with everyone else. It was during dinner, at a smaller family table, that it happened. The table was set for 7. My parents, my brother and his new wife, my sister and me. We had been seated together intentionally, in that way that wedding receptions always cluster families at the moment of highest feeling. The dinner plates had just been cleared. Someone had refilled the wine. My mother was saying something about holidays, something about gathering everyone for Thanksgiving, making plans, projecting forward into a future as though it were already settled. She turned to me and said warmly, comfortably, "Rachel, we really should talk about you slowing down a little. I worry about you being so isolated up in Chicago. You know, if you ever needed help managing things." I put my wine glass down. I said. I know. She blinked. Know what, honey? I know about the memo, I said. I know about the competency filing. I know about the physician you contacted through Sandra from church. I know that the plan was for my brother to become my financial trustee. I have the documents. My attorney has the documents. And the physician's counsel has already been in contact with mine. The table went very quiet. My mother's face moved through several expressions in the span of about 2 seconds. Surprise then. Something harder. Then an attempt at confusion. Rachel, I don't know what you think you left everything in the shared cloud folder, I said. The one from 2019, you forgot I still had access. I looked around the table. My father had gone still in a way that told me he had known. My brother was looking at the tablecloth. My sister was staring at me with an expression I could not entirely read. Something between horror and recognition. Like she was understanding, perhaps for the first time, the full shape of what she had been peripherally involved in. My new sister-in-law, to her credit, said nothing and touched no one and simply sat very upright and waited. I want to be very clear, I said, and I was surprised by how steady my voice was. I am not incompetent. I have never been incompetent. I run a business with 4 employees. I pay my taxes. I make sound decisions. And a temporary period of difficulty after a significant loss does not constitute grounds for stripping someone of control over their own finances. What you attempted was not only a legal risk to yourselves, it was a profound betrayal of every version of trust I ever extended to you. My mother started to speak. I held up one hand, gently, the way you might stop a child from running into a street. I am not finished, I said. The physician involved has already acknowledged improper conduct. My attorney has documented everything. I am not pressing any claims today because today is my brother's wedding day and he does not deserve to have it destroyed, whatever his role in this was. I looked at my brother directly when I said that. His jaw was tight. But I am telling all of you now, clearly, so that there are no misunderstandings going forward, I am done. Not angry done, not dramatic done, just done. I will not be attending future family gatherings. I will not be attending future family gatherings. I will not be available for phone calls that are actually information-gathering exercises. I will not be a resource to be managed. My mother's voice, when she finally spoke, was lower than I expected. We were trying to help you. You were struggling. No, I said. You were trying to control something. And you dressed it up as concern, which is something you have always been very good at. I paused. I genuinely believe some part of you thinks that is the same thing. That might be the saddest part of all of this. My father spoke for the first time. He said my name, just my name, in a voice that carried something I was not certain I had ever heard from him before, something regretful. I looked at him for a moment. I think you should have said something when she asked you to be part of this. I told him, quietly. I think part of you knows that. He looked down. I stood up. I picked up my small clutch bag from the back of my chair. I looked at my new sister-in-law and said, I'm so sorry this happened at your wedding. You seem wonderful, and I mean that. She nodded, her eyes bright with something that looked a lot like respect. I looked at my sister last. Her eyes were wet. She started to say something. Call me in a few months, I said. When you've had time to think. We can talk then. And then I walked out of the reception hall, through the lobby, past the coat check, and out into the October night. I stood in the parking lot for a long time. The air was cold and clear and smelled like fallen leaves, the particular smell of Ohio autumn that had been in my memory since childhood. I could hear faint music from inside. Something slow. I did not feel victorious. I want to be clear about that because I think sometimes people expect that confrontations like this leave you feeling triumphant, electric with righteous energy. I felt tired. I felt sad in a way that sat differently than anger, deeper and quieter. I felt the loss of something I had probably already lost long before I found that folder, the version of my family I had always believed in, a little more than the evidence warranted. I called a car from the parking lot and went back to my parents' house to retrieve my bag, timing it so I knew no one would be there yet. I left a note on the kitchen counter. Not angry, not detailed, just 3 lines telling them I had arranged an early flight and that I would be in touch through my attorney going forward regarding any legal matters. I was back in Chicago by noon the next day. In the weeks that followed, several things happened in their own time. My attorney formally put my family's documentation on record. The physician filed a voluntary correction with the state medical board before we initiated any formal complaint, an acknowledgement, my attorney said, that spoke volumes. No formal competency proceeding had ever been officially filed, which meant the legal exposure was civil rather than criminal, and I chose not to pursue damages. What I wanted was not money. What I wanted was for them to understand with absolute certainty that what they had attempted had been seen. My mother sent 3 letters in the first month. The first was defensive. The second was slightly softer. The third was an apology of sorts, or at least a document in the shape of one, explaining that she had been worried about me for years, that she had felt helpless watching me work myself to exhaustion, that she had only wanted to make sure I was protected. I read all 3 carefully. I did not respond to any of them. My brother called twice. The first time, I did not answer. The second time, I did. He was awkward and uncomfortable in the way that people are when they know they have done something wrong but have not yet fully admitted it to themselves. He said he had not realized how far it had gone. I told him I hoped that was true. I told him that trust, once it was broken in this particular way, did not simply reattach because someone felt bad about the break. I wished him and his wife well, and I meant it. We said goodbye, and I hung up. My sister called 4 months later. She started the conversation by saying, "I want you to know I read everything, the whole memo." I didn't understand what I was agreeing to when Mom forwarded me that email and I clicked confirm. I thought it was something about medical forms. She paused. "That's not an excuse. I should have asked. I should have called you." I appreciated her saying that. I appreciated the distinction she drew, not excusing herself but being honest about the chain of events. We talked for a long time. It was not a resolution exactly, but it was something real. Something that felt like the beginning of a different kind of honesty between us. I told her I was open to rebuilding slowly. I told her that slowly was the only way I knew how to do it. My father has not called. I check my phone sometimes and think about calling him, and then I don't. There is time or there isn't. I have made my peace with not knowing yet. People sometimes ask me, when I talk about this, what I think my mother actually wanted. Whether it was really about money, really about control, or something more complicated and harder to name. I have thought about this more than I care to admit. My honest answer is that I think she wanted me to need her. I think she spent 32 years watching me build a life she could not enter because I had never required her to enter it, and somewhere along the way that distance became something she could not accept. The plan, as horrifying as it was also in some twisted way a reaching out, a terrible, damaging, inexcusable reaching out. But a reaching out nonetheless. Understanding that does not forgive it, but understanding it does help me carry it without it turning into something that poisons me. My firm is doing well. I hired a 5th employee in January, a young accountant fresh out of DePaul who reminds me a little of myself at that age. Serious and slightly too proud to ask for help. I've been trying to be the kind of employer who makes it easy for people to say when they're struggling. Small gestures. Specific ones. I believe in specific gestures. I still live in Chicago. I still work too much by most people's standards. I'm still the person my friends call when they need something sorted, a lease reviewed, a benefits form explained. I am working on also being the person who asks for things, occasionally, without needing an emergency to justify it. Last month, I bought a plant for my office. A large, difficult-to-kill fern that sits in the corner by the window and has, according to my assistant, already survived 2 weeks without being watered. She calls it an achievement. I call it progress. I go back to Ohio sometimes for work, and occasionally I drive past the neighborhood where I grew up. The house looks the same. The driveway where I learned to ride a bike. The kitchen window where my mother used to stand while she made dinner, and I would see the light on from the street when I came home from school. The maple tree in the front yard that is bigger now than it was when I was small. I don't stop. But I don't speed past it either. I drive at a normal speed and I look at it for the seconds that I pass. And then I look back at the road ahead. That, for now, is what healing looks like for me. Not rushing towards something or away from something. Just driving at a reasonable pace. Eyes forward, taking in what is there without letting it steer the car. I am 32 years old. I built something from nothing, and it is still standing. I know now exactly how it is valued, and by whom. And I know the difference between people who support you and people who wait for you to need saving so they can be the one who decides what saving looks like. That knowledge is not a small thing. It is in fact everything.